What I'm going to talk about today is a very quick overview of our first 6 months of this administration, and the team that you see here. Part of the team that you see here is part of the team that's really carrying out a collective vision for the department in terms of looking at our accountability, our transparency, our community engagement and relationship, and obviously our crime fighting strategies, our efficiencies, our effectiveness. So I'm going to talk a little bit very quickly about some of the things that we've done, some of the highlights. I think they've given you a list of some of our major projects that we've had so far. I think most of them are on there, but don't be surprised if they're not on there, because I can tell you they're not all on there. We're not ready to talk about some of the things that we have ongoing. But, you know, one of the things that we know about our Houston Police Department is that it is policing one of the most dynamic, fastest growing cities in the United States, a very diverse city with a lot of infrastructure and a lot of issues here that we need to deal with in terms of homeland security and public safety. And so when you're as under-resourced as we are as an organization, efficiencies and effectiveness and proper use of resources is really key. And so in the first 6 months, what we've really worked on as a team is looking at how can we make our folks more efficient, more effective? How can we deploy those under-resourced, understaffed assets in a manner that we can maximize the use for the taxpayers, maximize safety for our officers, and maximize community safety? I want to start off by just saying, first and foremost, give again my thanks to my mayor, our mayor, Sylvester Turner, who's provided a tremendous opportunity for myself and my family, and obviously for this team up here, and is so helpful, helping us achieve our goals of improving the collective safety of the people of Houston, and also thank his council colleagues for their continued support and their continued singular focus on pursuing policies that are best for the people of Houston. Without their support, we wouldn't be standing here today, and we're very grateful for their leadership and support. One of the first things that we've done is actually looked at and reviewed our paperwork process. You know, this organization has so much paperwork that they do that, quite frankly, when you look at it, there's a duplication of efforts, duplication of reports, duplication of processes, and I want to thank Chief Satterwhite and the HPOU, who have worked diligently to reduce unnecessary processes and paperwork. They have prepared a report for me that's I have not approved, still in the draft form, but that will lead to some great efficiencies to our organization. That should be launched here in the next week or so. That was really key. Another thing that we're working on with our organization that is really important is looking at the way our computer-aided dispatch system and how we can actually use that system to prepare our organization and our create an organization that is better prepared for safety. For example, in the next few weeks, we hope to launch and actually lay out, and as Chief Gauze here, he's leading the way on this. We will be announcing a process by which members of our community can actually flag their residences, their vehicles, flag our 911 system. So when they have a autistic member of their family that may be, you know, a 17-year-old autistic young man that is in the prime of their physical life, but you know, maybe their communication skills aren't where they're at because of that condition, or dementia, or some other issue, that they can actually flag our system and even provide a photo of that individual. So as our officers are responding to a 911 call at a residence, or making a traffic stop on a vehicle, that that officer will have that flag pop up, and they'll be able to know that, oh, I got to watch out for this individual because they may have a hearing impaired issue, or they may have dementia, or they may have you know, autism. And so we really believe that by doing that, that when officers can explain behavior, when officers have an understanding of why someone may not be cooperating or completely reacting in a way that they consider to be appropriate under the circumstances, when they have that on the front end, it helps them process what they're seeing, and we're very hopeful that that will lead to some really good outcomes and safety for everyone involved. We've actually increased additional supervision at our terminals to ensure that we are keeping our customer service and relational policing mindset, practicing that as people call in. We want better supervision at the police department. One of the things that we have not done in many years is what we call a patrol staffing study or leveling of the organization. We have just finished up studying our leveling, which means what has happened in the last 10 years. What's happening every year in this city is that there are shifts in population, shifts in call load, shifts in the types of calls, shifts in crime, and again, when you're a small organization that is as understaffed as we are, we have to look at data. We have to be data-driven, intelligence-led. And so for the first time in many, many, many years, we've actually completed a very extensive analysis, and in the upcoming weeks and month or so or two, we'll be able to actually level the organization. Most importantly, the process that we are looking at in terms of leveling will be an annual process. So every year, the department will look as part of its ongoing management strategies at what's happened in the city throughout that year, and we will move resources around in terms of our patrol allocations on a regular basis, annual basis, and sooner if possible. We believe, again, that that's really key. The disciplinary process. We have moved very quickly to change our disciplinary process. One of the things that we've challenged our teams with is we have 180 days to take action. I don't think that any investigation should take 175 days, so we've actually mandated that investigations get done in a much shorter time frame. This is important, we believe, for the involved employees, which quite often can be investigated for complaints that really don't have merit, but they also are important for the community when they file a complaint that does have merit. All the involved parties, I think, we owe an answer to those allegations. So we've changed our processes to make sure that we speed it up. The other thing that I think is important is the granting of positive discipline. One of the things that for mistakes that aren't mistakes of the heart, mistakes of the minds, is that sometimes we suspend officers. Well, I want you to think about what happens when you suspend an officer. That day that they're off, that means that an officer that hasn't made any mistakes has to work that much harder because the officer is off. And quite frankly, to be real honest with you all, I think that it is also not good for the community when we take an officer that is really telling us through the disciplinary process that they get it, that instead of suspending them, we will do what's called positive discipline, where we will take some of their vacation time away from them, but they get to continue to work. It is a win-win. It's a win for the officers that never get in trouble, which is the vast majority. It's a win for the community because they don't lose that officer for that day or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days of positive discipline. And at the end of the day, it's a win for the involved officer because they don't have to turn in all their equipment, their badge, their ID, and be off at home instead of where they belong, which is at work, keeping the people of Houston safe and their partners. And quite frankly, for me, positive discipline, when people show that they get it when they make a mistake, they take ownership when they make a mistake, they own their mistake, and they commit to moving forward, it's an opportunity for them to continue moving in the right direction. So I think that's really important for us in terms of what we do. We've also clearly established a policy in terms of a bypass. And bypass is when someone's up for promotion, you look at their disciplinary history. We didn't really have a bypass policy. We've instituted one that specifically details to the employees under which circumstances and what are the rules of engagement in terms of someone that's been disciplined in the past, how long that discipline can be used against them. And quite frankly, I think when you have a clear, concise policy, it leads to consistency in the discipline process, and more importantly, it ensures the fairness of the discipline process. The department, as you all know, has already been reorganized. We want to, quite frankly, transition to a very transparent department. I believe that transparency breeds trust, trust breeds cooperation and respect. Cooperation and respect breeds better outcomes for all of our stakeholders, including the men and women that we lead here in the department and the community that we serve. We've actually reduced our upper management from, at one time, a height of 5 authorized executive assistant chiefs down to 2 authorized executive assistant chiefs. They're standing right by me, and Troy Finner and Matthew Slinkard. And we reduced our assistant chief ranks from a total of 10 down to 8. That's resulted in tens of thousands of dollars in savings to this great community that we serve. And the other thing that I can tell you is that we will continue as a living organization to always monitor our workload, analyze our workload to make sure that if there's further reductions that we would make them if necessary. We've actually launched a PERF study to look at our homicide, the Police Executive Research Forum, in conjunction with the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the Department of Justice. I actually reached out to the Bureau of Justice Assistance at DOJ and asked them if they would send a team from PERF to take a fresh look at how we really investigate our homicides. It's this study began on April 17, 2017, at no cost to the local taxpayers. We're actually recovering our taxes that we send to Washington, because thanks to the Bureau of Justice Assistance, that is actually a grant's actually funding that. We want to take a look at all of our practices, and again, that study began on April 17, 2017 at my request. It's a 3-part event lasting approximately 6 months, and we believe that it's going to make some of the things that we've already done highlight that we're in the right direction, but more importantly, it's going to ensure that we're not missing anything from a best practice standpoint as a police department. We've actually also looked at, we want to move our department to be more strategic in terms of being cohesively working together, not just with each other within the department, increase intelligence sharing within the department, but make sure that we're actually looking at crime fighting as a region. So we've actually started a working group to make sure that we're looking at crime fighting from a regional standpoint, and to make sure we're looking at crime fighting from an organizational standpoint. One of the things that police departments of this size do sometimes is that they do a lot of great communicating within their respective unit, but they don't do a lot of good communication outward throughout the organization in terms of units that may have similar missions. So we've actually created I think avenues, I would call them lanes, for information sharing. One of the things that local law enforcement likes to complain about is ineffective information sharing from the federal government down to us, but I'll be quite frank, we need to do a better job of information sharing as an organization internally and as an organization regionally, and that's one of the things that with the leadership of the men and folks we have in this group right now. Actually, I don't know where half of our women are gone today. They're out and about, but we got on vacations. Okay, so we're going to continue to work on that and include again much more communication with the internal teams, so we can make sure that we're actually all working on the same page. The Critical Incident Review Board. We've established Critical Incident Review Board to look at very critically, with a very, very, very close look at critical incidents to identify any instance in which we can have gaps in training, gaps in policy, gaps in the way we're doing business. And again, the reason we want this Critical Incident Review Board to be up and running is that we believe that regardless of outcomes, that when you do have a critical incident, we need to look at it as an organization to take a look and take that opportunity to see what did we do right, what did we do great, what did we do that can be better, and are there any lessons learned that we can share not just with ourselves but also with our partners across the region, state, and nation. In terms of crime reduction, one of the things that has changed that is immediate is the fact that in the past we have not done a great job of investigating non-fatal shootings. I want the criminal element to know in this city, the gang members to know in this city, those that would do harm to innocent people and to one another in this city, that those days are over. When you discharge a firearm in the city of Houston and you strike somebody and you shoot somebody, we're not going to wait till somebody dies. We're not going to wait to leverage all of our investigative resources. We are going to respond with investigators, with detectives, to start working those non-fatal shootings as if they were a homicide, in terms of seeking all the evidence we can seek, looking at all the follow-up we can conduct, and quite frankly, today's aggravated assault is tomorrow's murder, And we are not going to wait now any longer to wait till somebody dies or is on the verge of death before we leverage all of our investigative resources. This is a new mindset, a new approach, and I'm very proud of these two gentlemen at the end that are working diligently on me, and then Chief Jones is working very aggressively on this, but you're going to see us looking at these non-fatal shootings. The key to reducing homicides is solving non-fatal shootings. If you solve your non-fatal shootings, you're going to prevent the next homicide from happening, and so you're going to see an increased focus on investigators responding to scenes. That's already started, and we're very, very, very proud of that. And I'm not going to read everything, things. You guys can look it up in these handouts we send it out. One of the things that I noticed when I got here early on is that a lot of folks were working Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. And one of the things that I told my command staff is that, 8 to 4 are bankers' hours. We're the Houston Police Department, fifth largest police department in the country, serving the 4th largest city. And the bottom line is we have moved resources now where you see crime-fighting units working, not weekends and holidays off, not working just till 4. And by the way, this is not a criticism of our men and women that we lead. This is all about leadership. And I'm proud to say that we've talked to our cops. They get it. Cops are smart. What I love about the men and women of the Houston Police Department, that didn't take me very long to fall in love with this city and with this department, is that if you paint a picture for them, it makes sense to them, guess what they do? You call that play, and they run it. And so people that have previously had weekends and holidays off, nights off, evenings off, are now starting to work weekends, holidays, nights, and evenings. And I want to just say to the men and women of the Houston Police Department, what pride this leadership cadre has in all of you, that you've been waiting for the leadership to tell you which direction to head, that we have shown you the data that shows that this amount of crime is happening at hours of darkness, in evenings, at nights, and on weekends, and that you, as dedicated public servants, as dedicated peace officers, dedicated keepers of the peace, that you are not only able, but you're willing, and you're hitting the ground running. And so I just want to just, again, commend the mindset of our men and women that have absolutely really embraced the change. People don't like change. It's against human nature. I don't know anybody that likes change. I think we're just wired as human beings that we get into our comfort zones, and we get into our habits, we get into what we're comfortable in, and we don't like change. And I got to tell you that having been in policing now for 31 years, my third organization, I have not seen a department that has embraced change like the Houston Police Department. If you don't have pride in this organization, if you're listening and watching this and you don't know the collective heart of this organization, I can't tell you that it's just amazing to me the embracing of the changes that we're conducting in terms of everything we're doing. We've actually also created a criminal apprehension team that's going to be a citywide proactive team at my direction. This team will consist of 1 sergeant, 1 administrative officer, a lieutenant, and 8 investigators within the gang division. They're up and running. They're ready to roll. They will be out in the gang division. And this team is actually going to be working on getting the worst of the worst. They're going to have a razor focus citywide of getting the worst of the worst of offenders, and we're very proud of the fact that they're up and running. Now, let me talk real quick about our Special Investigations Unit. One of the things that I think is really important in terms of accountability, in terms of legitimacy, in terms of public trust, is having a team that investigates what I think is the most critical thing we can do, and that's the use of a deadly force incident. So we've established the Special Investigations Unit, which is a unit that was hand-selected by executive team in terms of making sure we got the very best of the best, because let's just make something real clear. We want our homicide. Historically, our homicide detectives have been the ones that investigate officer-involved shootings. Well, when you have over 300 homicides a year and you average anywhere from 30 to 45 officer-involved shootings a year, We don't want our homicides, I don't want my homicide investigators, we don't want our homicide investigators to move from what they're supposed to be doing, which is bringing murderers to justice and justice to their victims. I don't want that distraction. We don't want them to get away from crime fighting. One. Two, being a good homicide investigator doesn't mean that you're a good special investigations investigator because you're investigating cops. It's a different approach, a different mindset. Not everybody wants to investigate another police officer, quite frankly. It's not for everybody. And so this special investigations unit is specially trained. They will be looking at all of the criminal activity or allegations and uses of force of our folks. I want to thank Bobby Dobbins, Chief Dobbins, who helped take that on. He actually went to Austin, visited with Special Investigations Unit Command structure there. It's important for this community to know that in 2008, the Austin Police Department became the subject of a pattern and practice investigation with the Department of Justice after civil rights investigation complaints. And I'm very proud of the fact that this Special Investigations Unit is something that I established and we established in Austin that had the complete blessing of the Department of Justice and quite frankly is a model for a lot of places to follow. This unit became operational April 1st, 2017, and they're working in partnership with the District Attorney's Office, the District Attorney's Office Public Integrity Unit, the Forensic Science Center Lab, and obviously IID and the Firearms Training Team. You can be assured that the men and women that are investigating our police officers when they use deadly force in this community are going to be highly trained, and they're going to be the best of the best. And so again, that's really important. One of the things, again, that we've talked about in terms of our crime fighting is our gang division has expanded their operational hours to include weekends and holidays and to work late into the evening, into the night, and into the early mornings. That is something new that hasn't happened in the past, and that's happening citywide. So, again, to folks that are out there doing no good, up to no good, especially our gangs, stand by to stand by, because we're tired. This community's tired of gangs thinking that they own the streets. They do not own the streets. These streets belong to the law-abiding people of this great city that work hard to feed their families, work hard to make this one of the best cities in the country. And so to the gangsters out there, know this, we're going to start working smarter, we're going to start working harder, and we're going to come after you. If you want to play the fool, don't play the fool in the city of Houston, because it's a new day in Houston with a new mindset, with a new focus, and that focus is we are going to put our resources, our investigators, our gang units, our TAC units, they're going to be deployed throughout the city 24/7, 365 days a year, and we will not rest in our pursuit of these criminal elements that are endangering our young people, endangering and having an impact on the quality of life of our community. And it's something, again, that's been long overdue. And again, my hats go off to our men and women that have been waiting for the direction. They've got the direction, and they've embraced the direction. And again, it speaks volumes as the collective commitment and heart of this city's police department. Our partnerships, obviously, is really important. So we've reached out to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and our federal partners, our state partners, our county partners, and we've actually added 2 more squads to fight gangs that will be working diligently to fight our gang criminals in this city. We're also working very closely now with the FBI that's added additional resources to our gang fight units, gang fighting units, gang crime fighting units, and quite frankly, the Sheriff's Department with Sheriff Gonzalez and the Department of Public Safety with Colonel McCraw, Director McCraw. We are now working closer than ever to fight gangs in this city, and it's something that's new, something that's not completely new, but something that's been expanded, and we believe that's going to absolutely enhance the safety of this community. Social efficiencies, like my good friend wants to call it, we've completely changed our media protocols. I really believe that, the media is going to tell a story. Now, as an organization, you can sit back and let them tell the story for you, or you can make yourselves available as a partner with the media to tell a story and help frame a story. We will continue to enhance our ability to work with the media that quite frankly, I'm a strong proponent of the First Amendment, believe in the First Amendment. I think the First Amendment is one of the most important amendments in this Constitution, and we consider you guys and ladies to be our full-time partners in terms of keeping the community informed. I think an informed community is a community that's going to, through transparency, going to trust their police department, is going to engage their police department, is going to partner with the police department, and quite frankly, is going to join us in keeping themselves and each other, their neighbors, and these cops that we lead safe. That's why you're starting to see after-hour tweets from the command center. I want to thank Regina Wolfook, our Director of Media Relations, and her team, and obviously our team up at the command center. They're now starting to tweet. And believe me, I'm up at night sometimes watching to see if they're tweeting. What are you laughing at? Is he pointing at you? Carry on. That's Bernard. I think he says when I tweet that that you get an alert. Wasn't that you that told me that? Somebody told me, one of the reporters, and I'm waking them up at night because I am up at night seeing what's going on, making sure nothing's going on in the city. But we're going to continue to increase our use of social media, including Periscope, Facebook Live, Nextdoor, to provide real-time coverage. The other thing in terms of transparency, you have seen when we have an officer involved shooting a critical incident in the city, you're not going to see a PIO out there handling it in terms of use of force or one of our officers being seriously injured. You're going to see the police chief, you're going to see the executive assistant chiefs, you're going to see the assistant chiefs, but you will see people with stars on their collars guaranteed at every one of those scenes. Because leadership is not from behind a desk. Leadership is not via memo. You don't change culture from behind the desk via memo. You change culture, you enhance culture, you improve culture through engagement. And engagement doesn't just mean with the community. We have to engage the men and women we lead. And it cannot be the sergeant alone. It cannot be the lieutenant alone. It cannot be the captain alone. It cannot be the assistant chief alone. It cannot be the executive assistant chief alone. It's got to be the chief of police on down, everyone going in the same direction. And so I think you've seen that, and I don't need to go further. I've also in the process with Regina of creating a new program which will utilize on-call volunteers from the community that will provide translation services to the people that we serve. Now, I want to just tell this community, obviously we have translation services we can call, that our officers can call from a scene. But the problem with that is that if you have a choice between having somebody on scene, in person, that can look at body language, can make sure that they can see that the person's understanding, that the communication is concise and clear, why wouldn't we want to utilize that? So we're in the process, and we should have it here up and running pretty soon, of having a volunteer program where members of this very diverse community, once they pass a background and pass an actual language test, that they can actually volunteer to go ride on patrol with our officers and be in the front lines and provide translation services to the most diverse city in the country. We really believe that by having that, including ASL and American Sign Language, that we will be able to provide better service, better results for this community, and we hope to have that up and coming very quickly. But again, I'm not communicators. We're calling it Communicators on Patrol program, or COP. So anyway, I want to thank Regina for doing that, and we also are in the process of getting a police activities league going here that's been long dormant, which is ridiculous. As long as I'm chief of police working for a guy by the name of Sylvester Turner, youth will be a priority for this department. So we will not just continue to support YPAC and some of our other programs like the Explorer programs and try to grow them. We will establish Police Activities League. I've talked and actually met with the superintendent of schools to see if he'd be interested in partnerships. And if you know anything about our superintendent, you talk about kids, that's music to his ears, even though he's a mariachi guy too. You talk about kids and it's like poetry for him. So we will be working together with the school district and the Parks and Rec to form a partnership that get our Police Activities League going, because again, I believe that what we put into our youth is what we're going to get in our old age. And as I'm getting older, I want to make sure that we continue to do everything we can to make our young people successful, because they're the ones who are going to take care of us when we get old. Lastly, I want to talk about the body-worn cameras. You know, it's not a secret that I've been very public that our body-worn camera program is not where it needs to be. We need to continue to enhance that capability, especially as it relates to automatic triggers in terms of when the door opens, that camera comes on, because I want to set up our cops for success, not for failure. And so you're going to see some more. I won't talk about it today, but I'm talking with our mayor and about this program. We're looking into what should this program look like, not just in terms of only the hardware, but the evidence management, the processing of the video, and we're talking not just here with amongst each other. We're also talking with the district attorney's office and the sheriff's department, because we want to see what should the region look like in terms of evidence submission, in terms of how we collect and process and audit and manage and store the data that we get from the cameras. Just imagine, we have over 800,000 videos already in this department, and the program is pretty new. And so I'm proud of the fact that myself, Sheriff Gonzalez, our district attorney Kim Ogg, and we bring the fire chief because he has no friends, so we bring Sam along. Poor Sam comes along. Love my brother Sam, but you know, he's got peace officers, so we bring him along. He's got his arson investigators, and then I think the marshal, not the marshal, the inspections arm also has some police functions that they have. And so with that, we actually meet on a regular basis. So we have breakfast, and we get more work done at those breakfasts in terms of communicating challenges. And so in closing, I would just want to say the last thing that we have done as the police department, working with our partners and working with the DA, is that, you know, we came in here supporting the marijuana diversion program, because in a world of limited resources, we need to focus on what matters most, and that's life, limb, and property, and not necessarily messing with you know, a kid with a couple baggies of marijuana. Even though we do have teeth to enforcing that, because it's not legalized. Let's get that straight. We want to be focused on what matters most, which I think is life, limb, and property. And lastly, I can just tell you this, and this is a word to the wise to our gang members. The Department of Justice, in terms of the United States Attorney's Office, and the FBI, and the ATF, and the DEA, and the HSI, and all of our federal partners, we're going to start looking at you all to do some serious time when you commit violent crimes in the city of Houston, Texas. You can be assured that some of those hardcore criminals that have been coming in and out of the prison system, it seems like they get slapped on the wrist for these aggravated robberies and for doing some of the things that they're doing in terms of aggravated assaults. Don't be surprised if some of you start going to the federal penitentiary and doing some serious time, because it's a new day in Houston, Texas. And we're calling for all of you that think that you're going to get off with slaps on the wrist. I talk to the DA almost on a 2 to 3 times a week. She is committed to combating violent crime, including, and she considers people breaking into our homes a violent crime. She's committed to having a bail system that is based on threat. And when you're breaking into people's homes, when you're shooting at people, you are a threat. You're a serious threat. And so I can tell you that it's a new day in Houston, it's a new day in Harris County, and we're very proud to be part of that. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions. Yes?
You had an interesting first 6 months.
Who are you again?
I'm Devin with Channel 39.
Okay, great.
You had an interesting first 6 months with the Super Bowl, and of course the whole Tom Brady jersey debacle.
Who's Tom Brady again?
How was that for you, you know, for starting out here in Houston? Was that was the Super Bowl fun?
I love the fact that I had the privilege to be part of the Super Bowl. I love the fact that I had the privilege to watch the excellent work of these leaders up here, 3 years of planning come to fruition. And I really enjoyed watching our mayor and his council colleagues and this police department and this community. We were on the world stage. And it was, I think, the privilege of a lifetime to be part of a moment in Houston's history where by all accounts, we were on all 8 cylinders as a city. And quite frankly, I think what the Super Bowl did is it afforded the most diverse city in the nation and the most diverse nation in the world to showcase that Houston has arrived. It's a great city with a great downtown, with some great things to do. I mean, we're the the Broadway of the South. We've got live entertainment in terms of all the theater district, the museum district. As you can see from my very skinny physique here, it's food is abundant here, great cuisine. And so I was really excited. Now, I already had, look, it all went well, so my statement is I got here just in time. Had I gone south, I would say I got here too late. So I had two statements ready to go. Thank God I was able to say I got here just in time, thanks to Slinkard. What else?
Chief Kevin Quinn, I'm with Channel 13. You talked about the reallocation of patrols. In your estimation, were things misallocated previously? How do you make up for the difference in manpower that was in place previously when you've now had to spread it out over different hours and holidays and weekends and so on? Obviously, things weren't uncovered completely, but
No.
can you describe how things work compared to how you want it to be?
Well, I think that we now, and this is something that one of the things the mayor told me is I want you to have more of a CompStat approach. I want you to have more of a data-driven approach, and I take pride in the fact that I believe that the Austin Police Department re-engineered it into a data-driven, intelligence-led police department. And quite frankly, what happened here is that for 10 years we just put the assets wherever they were at in terms of patrol. We didn't ever actually analyze to the extent that I like to see the analysis of data to make sure that, in any given cycle, you may want to have, 20 more officers out of a station working patrol, where maybe after a year or two, you might look at data and those 20 officers may be better used, more needed somewhere else. But if you're not constantly analyzing data, and I don't believe that even today, we're still not where I wanted. I'm never happy, by the way. Never satisfied. I think once you think you've arrived as an organization, there's only one way to go, and it ain't up. So we got to continue to look at data and leverage that data to be able to be efficient. And so I can just tell you that, especially when you're hundreds and hundreds of officers short, and we have a mayor that's hopeful, and a council that's hopeful that we'll lift this cap that is really has a stranglehold on the city here in November, that if we can lift this cap, we can actually hopefully adds the resources of this department. I mean, when I go around the city and I paint a picture to this community where I compare us to Chicago, right? We are thousands of officers. They're at 13,000 officers. We're down to 5,100. We're not that much smaller than Chicago. And then when you get some data from Matt Slinkard during the budget that shows that we've grown in 20 years by 500,000 residents, right? Yet we have, I think, almost 300 fewer officers. I don't remember the number. How do you grow by 500,000, but you have 300 fewer officers, close to 300 fewer officers? Not to mention our support staff, our non-sworn staff that has been reduced, decimated. That makes what we're doing in terms of data analysis that much more critical. And I'm going to apologize right now to the community. As I go out talking to this community, we have to prioritize our calls. And, I remember going to one, and I think that the Chronicle might have been there. This lady was complaining about loud music. And I have to own it. I'm sorry. When you have calls dropping of shots fired, or you have calls dropping of somebody breaking into the home in the middle of the night, we have to roll to those calls first. And those other calls just have to take second priority or third or fourth. What else? What's your name again?
So obviously, as we were saying, this is a lot more, officers at different times of night, like throughout the weekend, your whole 24/7 mantra. But how are you going to do that with the cut in overtime, right?
I'll tell you right now, that's going to be very difficult. We basically have zero operational overtime in this budget. And we'll just have to continue to monitor it and report back to the city, and hopefully they'll be able to find some funding. But I forgot to actually mention the I don't know if we're going to call them the unlucky or the lucky 13, which is 13 investigators detectives that are now working nights that will be out there. And here's their role. Their role is to respond, assess the scene, If there's investigative action that can be taken, then they'll call out more resources. So in other words, 13 detectives for 365-day coverage is not enough to do what we want to do, but 13 detectives for 365-day coverage at night means that we have an expert that knows what they're looking for, that knows where they can get warrants going right away, right? That will come, assess, start providing some leadership with an investigative mindset, right? Because a patrol officer has one mindset, an investigator has another mindset. So that detective will come out part of the what do we want to call him, lucky or unlucky?
Lucky.
We'll call him Lucky. That was him. We're going to call him the Lucky 13. And so what we're going to do is bring them out, they'll assess, and if we've got leads that we can run with right then, they will have not only the authority, but they will have the absolute direction from this administration, get the resources going. Because just remember this, every homicide, according to the RAND Corporation, every murder in a city is a $1 million economic hit on that city. $1 million. So let's think about that. With these men and women responding, if we can actually solve those aggravated assaults or aggravated robberies at night, early, before somebody dies, every life we save is $1 million savings. And to me, that's not what the important part is. To me, it's the emotional toll, the psychological toll every homicide has on the involved family and on the community as a whole when you wake up in the morning and you see in the media that, 3 people were shot last night. So we are going to start with the Lucky 13 going after those aggravated assaults and robberies at night and hitting the ground running. I think that's going to be huge.
So these 13, who did the work before that they're going to be doing now, or did someone?
They would do the work, but they would do the work 2 or 3 days later they start working on a case. You can't do that. I mean, there's a show called The First 48. There's a reason they call it The First 48.
So they wouldn't investigate initially?
They wouldn't go to the scene. There would be a patrol officer. I mean, you guys remember the conversation. It was not a very nice conversation when I came back, and you don't like being the bad guy, but you get hired for a reason. When I'm working New Year's Eve and I go to a shooting scene and there's an officer there, hey, where's the detective? Well, they don't, unless somebody's going to, that was not a hit. But then I think it was New Year's Day, I go to Martin Luther King and Reed, where I was with that dumb Longhorn shirt. Is this right? Where I go, this guy's been hit 3 times, multiple times. And I look out and I see a patrol officer. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, he's not expected to die. And here's my mindset. A person that shoots someone today, probably has already shot somebody before today, probably will shoot somebody tomorrow. And this is the conversation we had with our team. And I said, and unwittingly, what message are we sending to the victim and their families in that neighborhood, in that community, when somebody's been shot multiple times, and we don't even bother to roll a detective? I said, by the way, what's the likelihood that that person that shot somebody's already killed somebody before? Did they not have that conversation? And what's the likelihood that they might shoot somebody again? So it's a new day in Houston. We are going to go after aggravated robbery and aggravated assault suspects from the word go, thanks to the leadership of the men and women that are not here today. I think all of our assistant chiefs are out and about. What else?
Chief Carlos María, Telemundo, ¿nos puede decir, le tocó un cambio de presidencia, la gente, hispanos, inmigrantes se sienten atemorizados, el 1 de septiembre entra la SB4, ¿cuál ha sido la comunicación con la comunidad hispana para llevar una buena relación y que denuncien crímenes y no se sientan atemorizados?
Bueno, de nuevo, gracias a Dios que soy hispano, soy inmigrante, y para decirle la verdad, yo creo que nos estamos ganando la confianza de esta comunidad. Saben que que es importante que, número 1, sigan mandando sus hijos y sus hijas a la escuela. Número 2, que estamos aquí para servirle al crimen, a la víctima y al testigo del crimen. Acuérdese que esta ley SB4 también no permite que cualquier departamento, no permite que le pregunten sobre si está aquí, si es legal o ilegal, si es una víctima o es un testigo. Eso ahora es contra la ley. Esa es una de las únicas cosas que me gustó de esa ley. Así que es importante. Número 2, acuérdese que nosotros vamos a decirle a nuestros oficiales si por alguna motivación, algún por alguna razón le preguntan a una persona, a un habitante en esta comunidad sobre si está aquí legalmente, van a tener que escribir un reporte para que nosotros sepamos por qué preguntó esa pregunta. Porque el perfil de una persona por su apariencia no lo vamos a permitir.
Es más trabajo eso para ustedes, que ya tienen bastante trabajo.
Tenemos bastante trabajos, pero la ley pasa, no sé lo que va a pasar con la corte, porque yo sé que hay una demanda en la corte en la ciudad de San Antonio, la ciudad de Austin, pero lo que yo sé es que nosotros vamos a estar bien entrenados para estar seguros que estamos respetando a la comunidad. Yo todavía pienso que en esta ciudad no debe tener temor.
Mencionó el programa de Community on Patrol.
Sí.
Esto va a ayudar a entender mejor a las víctimas, los testigos, de lo que ya los policías patrullan.
Claro que sí, nosotros ahora vamos a traer un programa nuevo para que la persona que pueda pasar el examen y la investigación personal sobre su carácter puedan patrullar con nosotros como voluntarios para poder ser intérprete y traducir cuando hay un crimen. Yo creo que eso es muy importante para una ciudad con tanta diversidad como la ciudad de Houston. Estamos orgullosos del programa, la señorita Woodfuck que está al punto de anunciar ese programa. Anything else? ¿Ah?
Finalmente, usted también mencionó mucho de la lucha contra las pandillas.
Las pandillas, estamos aquí para decirle que los días que los oficiales, los investigadores están trabajando de noche, todo ha cambiado. Vamos a tener investigadores contra las pandillas trabajando los fines de semana, trabajando por la noche, trabajando por la madrugada, y más importante, deben saber los pandilleros que estamos ahora trabajando muy cercamente con nuestros agentes federales y también con el fiscal federal. Lo que va a encontrar que si comete un delito aquí en esta ciudad, hay una gran posibilidad que va a ir a la prisión federal por muchos años. Así que si va a estar haciendo estupideces, no lo haga aquí en Houston porque este es un nuevo día.
¿Cuál es el reto más grande que tiene en este momento? Ya pasaron 6 meses y le han tocado muchas cosas, muchos incidentes
Sí.
de todo tipo.
Sí.
Oficiales involucrados en tiroteos, el Super Bowl, eventos grandes. ¿Cuál es el reto ahora para usted?
Mira, para mí la tragedia más grande fue cuando el oficial Cortés y Muñoz, el sospechoso ese que estaba robando una casa, le tiroteó a los dos y desgraciadamente el oficial Cortés sigue batallando para poder caminar y por eso para mí cada vez que veo una persona, unos de mis oficiales así herido o también tantas personas que están muriendo aquí en los accidentes del tránsito o también con homicidio, me duele mucho el corazón. Así que tenemos que trabajar todos juntos para mantener la seguridad pública. Okay, anything else? Yes, sir.
One thing, and maybe you covered this in Spanish, forgive me, sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
Where do you stand with this? Where does the city stand with this? And how are you going to deal with the ramifications of this company?
Well, I mean, sanctuary cities, I think everybody knows where law enforcement stands on it, where all the major city chiefs stand on it, where police labor, especially at the state level with CLEAT and TMPA and management are against a bill, that kind of a tell. That's really bad policy. We will have our policies already in the draft form. We're going to have training. Our folks will be very well versed in the fact that we cannot racially profile, even the law says you can't. We're going to require officers to write a report if they make that inquiry, so they can do two things. Number one, if it's legitimate, I want to make sure that we can document it's legitimate. Number two, several things. Number two, I want to make sure that we keep track of instances when we are asking for somebody's immigration status, because I don't want, without data, I can't push back on accusations that we've become ICE agents. And number three, if for some reason a complaint comes in that our officer racially profiled, I want to protect that officer. So we're going to require them to write a report when they make those kind of inquiries. But at the end of the day, everybody in this city knows how under-resourced we are as a police department, how challenging the environment is here in the city of 640 square miles, 2.4 million, 2.3 million people, fastest growing. Our officers, we still expect them to focus on crime fighting, and so we will obey the law, but we are going to make sure that the law is applied in a constitutionally lawful manner. Anything else? And do you guys want to say anything real quick?
No.
Huh?
Chief Acevedo, usted comentó que iban a mejorar el patrullaje
locales patrullaje en ciertas horas. ¿Hay algunas zonas específicas del área metropolitana que tengan que ser atendidas con urgencia en ese sentido?
Bueno, las zonas para nosotros son las zonas que tienen el crimen, especialmente el crimen violento. Nosotros vamos a usar la inteligencia y los datos que tenemos para analizar a dónde están cometiendo los crímenes, de qué clase de crímenes, y vamos a meter nuestros oficiales, nuestras unidades contra el crimen en toda la ciudad. Así que algunas veces van a haber más policías donde usted está viviendo, algunas veces van a haber menos. Todo depende en el análisis de todos los datos. Okay? One more, and then do you want to say anything? Either one of you guys?
Good.
Anybody?
You're always, you've been talking a lot about how under-resourced the department is, and the city is, starved, as you said.
Artificially cash starved, yeah.
Yeah, and about the revenue cap.
Yeah.
So realistically, what do you really think you'll be able to get voters to vote to raise taxes or give the city the ability to do that?
You know what?
How are you gonna do that?
I think that's one of Mayor Turner's and the council's, quite frankly, one of their priorities. When people call 911, when do they want the police to get there? Now. When a tree falls on your street, and God knows with the weather we have here, when do they want the city to show up and remove the tree? When power goes out, but that's really, we don't have our own utility. But when things happen and you need city government, look, I think that we can show our efficiency as an organization in this community, but at the end of the day, you can only squeeze so much out of a department. We now have several studies that show that the police department, and not the police department saying it, but we have several studies that show the police department is significantly understaffed. I think Houstonians are smart. I think Houstonians value and put a high emphasis on especially public safety, and I think they're willing to pay for it. Look, too many people are already paying for constables. They're paying that separately. I mean, so why don't we get rid of this cap and have a properly resourced police department instead of having a hodgepodge where, some neighborhoods can afford it, so they get better policing than others? Why don't we all, because none of us live on an island, right? Why don't we all pony up and actually pay the appropriate, provide the appropriate revenue for the city? And I can tell you that one of the things that I know working for this mayor and council is that they're not going to let us waste it. They pay attention. They ask a lot of questions. This is a very engaged council. We know that the mayor absolutely leads from the front. The guy, I think there's only one person that works harder, and that's Sylvester Turner. I don't know when he sleeps. But it is what it is. And so God willing, we'll get that lifted and get some relief. I believe that we're the only big city in the state of Texas that has this cap like we do here that's killing the city. And so we'll see what happens, but I'm hopeful that with the mayor's leadership and this community's trust that we'll be able to get it done. Yes, ma'am. Last one.
Push has been a problem in Houston, and the largest, even understaffed, you guys were able to make the largest push bust in Houston history. And it seems even in the last 6 months, it's been cleaned up a lot. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think that it's really about our narcotics unit. They do such phenomenal work. If you remember my very first week here, we had a huge bust. And it's interesting because it not only impacted Houston and talking to my colleagues in Austin, because we are kind of a distribution point, it's had an impact. And talking to Chief Pena, we haven't had those, 30 calls in 24-hour period with people using this poison. And then the second one that we just had recently was actually a manufacturing location. It's had an impact. And here's the word of the wise. We're not done. We're going to continue to fight this epidemic. And the bottom line is this to folks. This is not synthetic marijuana. There's nothing marijuana about this. This is poison. It is a poison that you're ingesting. When we find paint thinner in this kush, think about that for a minute. And you're really playing Russian roulette with your life when you're ingesting this stuff. So it's had an impact, but I think we can't rest on our laurels. Last thing I want to just remind everybody that when you're under-resourced, the most important asset we really have, other than our outstanding men and women, is the community itself. We saw what happened in London in the last couple of few weeks. If you see something that's suspicious, if you see something that's out of place, if you see something that doesn't make sense, let us know. Let us know. Again, our greatest force multiplier is the community that we serve, and then when we can leverage appropriate technology, we can do a lot more with less. And when we're as lean as we are, that community relationship and that community engagement and involvement is key. All right, guys, thanks again for coming. Appreciate you all. Hope you found value in it.